Welcome to Aaron Warren's DIY Garage. I drove 9 hours one way in November of 2017 to buy this rusted out Datsun. I decided when I bought it that I would catalog every part of my build. Because of that choice, I believe my channel has the most Datsun 510 content in all of YouTube. And I did what I set out to do, which was turn this Datsun 510 into a daily driver. I've had her running since August 2021 and have put over 4,000 miles on her, including a car show in Williams, Arizona, which was the final push I needed to get this car done. I couldn't have done this without the love and support of my wife Danielle, who you see in the background of so many of my videos. So what all did I do to this car that honestly still doesn't even look that great on the outside? Well, I swapped in an L20B engine, put in a 5-speed, rebuilt the brakes, replaced the suspension with T3 coilovers, changed the wheels not once but twice, built 2 exhausts for the car, swapped the front seats from a Mercedes into the car, refreshed all of the steering components, designed and 3D printed my own tachometer as well as shift knob, and last but certainly not least, did a whole heap of rust repair to include the back panel, the trunk floor, both rear fenders, both sides, inner and outer rocker panels, all the floorboards, front under seat rails, front frames, and even the engine bay radiator cross support. This was meant to be a rolling restoration that I could enjoy driving while fixing the small things. It wound up being on jack stands for the better part of 3 years. I do still have a few more videos to make for some small detail work, but this is the majority of it. Hi, my name's Aaron. Welcome to my channel. Behind me is a 1972 Datsun 510, and over to the right-hand side of me is a 1975 Datsun 280Z. I just picked up the 510. It's got a whole heap of parts back there on the shelves, including an L20B that hopefully over the next few months I'll be swapping in. It's got the L16 in it with a stock carburetor. I'm actually in this video going to be swapping out that normal carburetor for a Weber downdraft carburetor that actually came with the car. Over the next few videos you'll see me work on the brakes because they currently don't work. You'll also see me work on getting the car idling better and just other various small projects around here so I can get the car driving. The goal is to have a daily driver car out of this. So if you like what you see and you want to see a video series of a stock 510, I'm not going to be going crazy here. I'm not going to be just turning it into a race car or anything like that. It's just going to be back up and running. But I should be attempting some rust repair as well as some other things, some swapping over with some coilovers and different things like that over the next few months. And just like that, I think I'm done. Yeah, there's a ton of little things to do around the car, but it's where I wanted it to be. It's a weird feeling, being this close to done with like a real long-term project. Guys, this is awesome. I'm not going to talk through this video, so all you'll see is the introduction to each of the videos, or most of the videos, and then all of the work. If I was you, I would turn on a record and listen to some music while watching. Thank you for checking out my channel, and if you like what you see, hey, help me out. Let other people know about my channel. Press the like button. All hail the algorithm. In episode 5, I go ahead and install the T3 coilovers in the back of the Datsun 510. I'm going to install the exhaust that's currently on the car, came with the car. I'll be updating it at some point in time in the future, but this will be good enough for now, as well as doing a tiny bit of vacuuming. In today's episode, we're going to go ahead and replace the master cylinder, as well as the slave master cylinder. And today I'm going to be replacing the dust cap. I'm going to be changing out I'm actually going to be replumbing the mechanical fuel pump because it had an electric fuel pump that was overpowering the carburetor, as well as doing a little bit of work on the ignition coil. In this episode, I'll be removing the engine, transmission, and radiator. I'll also do some electrical work, some carb work, I'll do some parts cleaning, and then I'll also cut out the battery tray. I ended up getting a leak in between the somewhere in this line somewhere, so I'm just going to go ahead and replace the whole thing just so we don't have old crappy 30-year-old parts in the car that for something as important as my clutch. So in this episode, we're going to go ahead and cut out the rust in the engine bay. So you'll see I've got really 4 spots of rust that work out to be about 6 patches. I end up making 7 patches total. So I've got the 2 right here along the radiator support that I cut first, and then I've got on the same strut towers, both passenger side and driver side, on the inside and or interior and exterior skin, I have rust I've got to cut out. So I use a 4.5-inch angle grinder that I purchased from Harbor Freight, it's a Hercules brand, and I go ahead and start cutting out those pieces. In this episode,
I'm about to clean up the engine bay with all the grime and gunk that's been in it. Once I get that done, I'm going to sand it down, add body filler, and paint the engine bay back to its original color, and then I'm going to button the car back up together and hopefully drive it. I've actually worked on the car a little bit throughout the evenings, just trying to tinkering on the wiring. It actually turned out to be a problem with the distributor. I had an extra single points distributor in the upper, like in all of my parts that came with the car. So I was able to actually change to the other distributor single point and fire it right up. I also had some issues where I had put the number 1 spark plug wire 1 off, and so instead of being the firing order from top dead center being 1 3 4 2, it was 2 1 3 4, so nothing was happening. So I'll go ahead and start it up for you, and you can hear the car run for a second, and then I'm going to continue putting the car back together. But yeah, so excited to have the car actually in a spot where it's actually sort of working. So hopefully this car won't make me a liar here in a second whenever I try to start it up. I need to wire up some relays for the electric fans that I need to hook up some wires to the reverse sensor. And finally, I need to close the transmission tunnel and sort of get that cleaned up. So I'll be welding around some carpet, so hopefully I don't start any fires today. And today I'm going to be replacing the alternator that I cleaned up. Whenever I took it apart, I must have done something bad on it, so it didn't have. So whenever I put it back together, it wasn't charging the battery. However, you can see that the whole kick panel is very bad. The rocker. We're going to try to figure out why the car will not stay running. But Datsun Holic, thank you very much.
Underneath the seats
suggested that there might
terrible,
be
but the seams
bolts here that have backed off on the
If you go
adapter
back to the
plate.
back,
So I went ahead and took my feeler gauge today.
you'll
Slides
notice you
right
can
in
see
there.
a
So
big hole in that
clearly
corner.
there's an issue there, and that's where it's probably causing all the problems. I couldn't even get it to idle long enough so I could like test for vacuum leaks. So thank you for that shout out. So we're going to take off the carburetor today and tighten up those bolts, put some blue Loctite on them, and then put it all back together. See how ridiculously loose that is? Yeah, so they got to be tightened and then put back together. I'm actually starting to work towards changing the rocker panels out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the interior and sort of do an assessment of the floorboards and everything else that I might need to replace and start making the plan for how I'm going to start replacing the floorboards in the car and replacing and repairing the rust on the car. Here was a previous attempt at repairing some floorboard here. So we got a nice metal sheet here. We've got a nice Fred Flintstone hole here. I haven't taken off these kicks, however. Put in the firewall completion that goes down underneath the floorboard. I'll mark out the spots on the floorboard, draw with a marker, drill through for the spot welds, spot weld it on, and then I'll probably seam seal up whenever I get that done, and then it'll be to the floorboard. Sort of swinging around here. That is not acceptable. Here's the piece that the floorboard sits on. You can see the floorboard is rotted out to here. I think sort of back in farther it's okay. Yeah, so that is just terrible. You can see that, see that, see that. It's gone. So, man, not good. Shale in here, so I'll go ahead and work on getting this piece off. That ain't good, right? So, like to the point where I really should probably throw the car away, but that's not going to happen. So if rust were gold, I would have found a gold mine here. This whole entire piece, both the front and the back, are just completely rusted out. I know you can't hear me very well, but not good. Look at this. I'm going to be adding some cross bracing to just this portion of the car to make for sure that it doesn't sag. Today, I'm actually going to put in the rear floorboard. That's good news because this car's been off the road for about a month and a half, and I'm really excited to drive it again. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch holes here in order to plug weld it into place. Once I've plug welded it into place, I will then go ahead and start working on the rocker panel. I'm going to go ahead and continue working on welding in the rocker panel. Once I get done with that, I'm going to then sort of move to the rear wheel arch. Alright, so in today's video I'm going to take this perfectly wonderful, perfect piece of brand new metal and I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it to replace this, the rear wheel arch. What I'm going to be working on today is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be fixing this last little spot right here where I need to repair the sheet metal, and then the car will be ready to seal up and go from there. Time lapse. Today is going to be a pretty short day for me, however, it just depends how I stitch these videos together for you. Today I'm going to take this brushable seam sealer and I'm going to start putting it into the seams inside the car as well as along the front. This doesn't have to be real pretty because it's going under carpet or it's going under seats, so they suggest putting it on with a stiff brush. I've seen people use gloved fingers, so we're going to try that and see how well it works. Let's get to it. GoPro stop. GoPro stop.
Today, I'm going to start putting on a little bit of Bondo here on this area and start sanding it back, and then work with the sander a little bit more to sort of clean up the last few of these welds that I couldn't get to with the big grinder. We're going to be working on this fender. Shoot. Alright, welcome back to my 1972 Datsun 510. It is April 13, 2019, and today I think I can do this in one take. Obviously, I'll cut this part out of it, or I won't. Alright, so I've already marked out the inner fender that I need to cut out, so I'll go ahead and trace that out, cut that out with the cutoff wheel, and I'll weld it into place. Let's get to it.
Alright, today we're going to continue work on the fender. Hopefully we're going to have it welded up and ready to go. Pew pew! I'm actually on the passenger side of the car now. It's been a while. The car's been sitting and filled with boxes of cups for a laser business that I decided to start up in my free time because I've got so much free time. And now I'm actually going to start continuing to work on the passenger side. As you see, there's some rust here on the fenders. There's just as much rust back here on these quarters, and we're going to get to it. So today, what I'm going to try to do is get the doors off, get the car cleaned out. Let's go ahead and get to it. I've got my wicked awesome glasses on, so I can see now. Of note, under this floorboard is the fuel line. So don't just go willy-nilly cutting into the floor here. You need to make for sure that you remove the fuel line or move it out of the way or do something with it because that's where the hard line is. Alright, looking at the bottom portion of the car, you can see where the pieces all came together. Just has been mangled over the years and beat up. On this video, I'm going to go ahead and start working on cutting out panels so I can see what I need to replace. I know I need to replace some parts on my inner rocker panel, and that's where I want to start. And today we're going to work on cutting out the passenger side front floor pan and placing it in. Today work continues on cutting the rust out of the car It's been about 7 months since I worked on the car, and today we're going to continue sort of working on this inner sill. Next thing I'm actually going to work on is the seat belt mount. So in the next part of the video, I'm going to go ahead and start working on this piece right out here to replace this, as well as coming in and actually cutting out this part and working the new piece in here. I will be adding a piece that goes around this corner, as well as creating the piece that actually goes to meet it here. Cut here, the last and remaining piece here, and fold this piece back over into it. We'll go back to the next episode of the Datsun 510. Today I'm going to go ahead and start working on this floorboard. Alright, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. It is episode whatever that said below. Today I'm going to continue working on the front floor pan, getting that welded in. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and today we're going to start work on the rocker panel. Oh, hello, I didn't see you there. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. A little sneak preview of what's going to happen in the future. Sometime we're going to put these seats in. They're from a Mercedes CLK. But today, we're going to move back to the rust repair. Check out this before shot versus after shot. Sorry, it's from a different angle, but I think you get the point of how much crap I removed from this thing. It was disgusting. Alright, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Today we're going to finish welding the pillars to the rocker panel. There's some spots back here that we need to weld, as well as filling in the rest of these plug welds. And then we are going to head on to the back arch and start cutting here, as well as getting and cutting out this rear fender. So now I'm going to replace this piece before I move into the rear portion as well as this portion. Danielle, do you want to explain what I'm going to do next? She has no idea. All right, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Today, we are going to finish placing this piece here, start preparing to put this trunk floor drop off here by cutting out the old piece, finish welding in underneath here, smooth off the spot welds here, finish the spot welds here on the rocker panel as well as on the underside, and then trim it to fit and call it a day. Hello, and welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Today we're going to do things on the car. Truck door was a man. Hey, welcome back to my 1972 Datsun 510. Today we're going to work on the trunk, cutting out the old portion here, welding in the new portion here, and then getting all of this sort of tacked together. So that way we can then move to sinking the battery box in and finishing out this section so we can then put on the fender. Let's get to it. Alright, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and today we're going to finish this patch panel as well as put the battery tray in, or battery box in. Alright, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and today we're going to play a little guitar. I got my fender right here. Kidding, of course. We're going to put this fender on this car. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and before we move on to start reassembling the car and moving to the front rust, we're going to go ahead and install these seats. Hey, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Today, we're going to finish this inner patch panel right here that keeps road dirt and debris out of the rocker panels, as well as sand the trunk down, get it ready to go, clean it up, prime it, and then do a few things around the car, such as put this beautiful tarp on it. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and today we're going to tackle this last rust spot, both on this side. There's also one on the other side. We'll see whether we get to that one on the 510. In order to do that, though, I'm going to take the front suspension out. I don't know how I didn't notice it earlier, but like this whole entire front section, you saw me just peel it off. It's so bad. And the other side has the exact same repair. It's not quite as bad as this side was, but I'm sure that it is just a travesty waiting to happen. And so I don't even know how this okay. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do. This is like the fourth introduction video that I've done today because all of my best laid plans keep getting ruined by finding the next thing that I need. So, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Today, I believe I'm going to get the inside cleaned up and get that primed so that way I can paint the trunk as well as the inside all at the same time. Hey, welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and today we're going to tackle the front rust by moving around the engine as well as the front cross member.
Yay!
Once upon a time, a grinder broke. And then I went and got another grinder. And then that grinder didn't come with a flange nut. So then I went back to Home Depot on the exact same day. And I said, please, may I have one with an actual flange nut? They said, okay, here you go. And we exchanged it. And then several days passed because I had to go to work. And then it was dark outside, so I made this video to waste approximately 20 seconds of your time. Now we're going to go cut out this next piece that we need to cut out. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Be very quiet. I don't want the 510 to hear us. Today, we're going to do rust repair on it. It's right behind me, isn't it? He's right behind me. And today we are going to take this template, which is part of this inner fender, or excuse me, inner rail, and we are going to cut it out, and then we are going to put it in the car. What if I told you that for just 10 cents a day, you could keep this Datsun on the road? Would you dial this phone number below and talk to one of our representatives? I'm kidding. Alright, so in the next part of the video, I'm going to go ahead and deburr all of these holes that I put in here, and then I'll hit it with a little coat of paint, and we'll go ahead and start installing it on the car. And then we're getting real close to being done doing a rust repair on this car. Today, the cutting out of rust still continues, but I believe we're on the sort of the final stretch of this. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510.
Yeah, I had to dub over this one. What I said I was going to do was completely wrong, but I will be painting the trunk as well as the floorboards. Stay tuned.
Okay, so work continues. I'm going to continue to reassemble the car, at least somewhat. I literally just put every single one of those in the wrong box. That's great. So, obnoxious as all get out. What do you call a Datsun owner who says they don't have any rust holes in their car? you call him a liar. Today, we're going to try to work on the last rust holes that I know of inside this car. I had to wait for the garage door to shut. So it is the first day that I am working in the garage in 2021, although this video will be much later in the year. So Happy New Year to you! And it doesn't really matter because you might find this 10 years later on YouTube, and so the day of the year doesn't really make a difference. Hi, and welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and today we're going to put some doors on this guy. And I've shot this intro video about 10 times today because I've decided what I'm going to do finally. Today we're going to change out some steering components under the car. We're going to also, what I think people are really going to be excited for, is install this Techno Toy Tuning front coilover suspension. Take a look today and make an assessment about whether we think we can fix these or not. And today we're going to install the headlights, the other headlights, the finishing around the headlights, some chrome trim, side marker lights, and some chrome trim that we clean up. Let's get to it.
I went ahead and took this side molding off. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510. Today we're going to pull the transmission out and we're going to take it apart. Now we start the thing I dread. We're going to take apart the transmission.
Don't really know why I didn't use this camera angle beforehand. It keeps you out of my way, but still hopefully allows you pretty much to see everything I'm doing. Welcome back to Aaron's 1972 Datsun 510, and in this episode, the transmission reassembly continues. We're going to go ahead and get the gears back on, and then we'll end it. Back to the next step, which I believe is to reinstall the gutter and the shift forks. I'm going to rebuild the exhaust that I've already built once, but that was several years ago. The exhaust is in. See how she starts and see how she sounds. Not quiet. Today we're going to finish painting as best as we can. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll all be one color. That's what we're going for. All one color. What do you think?
And just like that, I think I'm done. Yeah, there's a ton of little things to do around the car, but it's where I wanted it to be. It's a weird feeling being this close to done with like a real long-term project. Guys, this is awesome.